Rebecca hated the kind of exhaustion that blurred into silence, the sort that made you too tired to even be annoyed. The baggage claim had long emptied out. Even the echo of wheels on tile had died away. She stood alone outside the arrivals terminal, wind catching the hem of her coat, the concrete damp from some earlier drizzle that hadn't stuck around long enough to clean anything. The flight had landed hours later than it should have. By the time Rebecca stepped outside the terminal, the air had changed. It was the kind of night that felt like the day had been erased, not ended. No lights in the distant hills, no wind, no stars. Just the low hum of vending machines inside and the automatic doors sighing open and shut. She sat on a bench just past the yellow line, coat pulled tight, watching the glare of her phone screen as her thumb refreshed the rideshare app for the 6th time. Searching for drivers. There had been 3 already. One canceled just as she reached the pickup zone. Another accepted, then sent a message. Sorry, too far. Try someone else. The 3rd never moved at all, the little profile picture frozen in place on the other side of the city before it vanished. She glanced around. The airport was nearly empty. A janitor leaned on his mop behind the glass, more asleep than awake. Farther down the road, a couple argued by a rental car kiosk, their voices hushed but sharp. Somewhere overhead, a plane passed unseen, just a deep rumble, fading fast. Rebecca stood. The wheels of her carry-on clacked over the uneven concrete. She gave the app one last try. Nothing. She sighed, half-laughed to herself, the way you do when you're too tired to cry and too alert to relax. She scanned the row of taxis parked farther down the lane. Most were dark inside. Some had fogged windows and seats covered in blankets, the drivers asleep or pretending to be. She walked past the first 3. One had the engine off. One had a dashboard covered in paper slips and empty soda bottles. One had a man in the front seat watching something on his phone. He didn't look up. The 4th one did. Yellow cab, old model, paint chip near the bumper. The engine was running. The driver had the window rolled halfway down and a cigarette resting on the doorframe. His eyes flicked to her, then back to the empty road ahead. She hesitated. He hadn't waved, hadn't smiled. She took a step forward anyway.
Still working?
The driver turned, finally meeting her gaze. His cap was low on his forehead, shadowing his eyes. He flicked the cigarette out and let it spark on the ground.
Depends on where you're going.
Seance Inn, near Willow Wisp.
He scratched his beard, thought for a second. Then he nodded once.
Long stretch at this hour, but sure, hop in.
Rebecca glanced at the empty road. No other cars, no other options. She opened the back door and got in. The airport and the city fell away faster than she expected. 1 minute, they were passing through a stretch of dim streetlights and gas stations. And the next, the world had narrowed into a single-lane road flanked by trees. No sidewalks, no fences. The woods pressed close, their outlines bending beneath the occasional glow of the headlights. Rebecca shifted in her seat, reaching for the seatbelt. It clicked into place with a reluctant tug.
Quiet out here.
The driver didn't answer right away. He had both hands on the wheel, eyes fixed ahead. The dashboard lights washed his face in pale blue and green, giving it a strange underwater stillness.
Quieter every year. Town used to stretch further, but the road swallowed most of it.
Swallowed?
Just a way of speaking.
The silence returned. Rebecca pulled out her phone, checked the signal. 1 bar, then none. She tried refreshing the map anyway. It loaded half a screen before freezing.
GPS cuts out around here, happens to all the tourists.
I'm not a tourist, just visiting a friend.
Still not from around here?
She looked up. He wasn't watching her through the mirror, just driving, hands steady, slow curve in the road now.
No, first time.
He nodded, almost like he'd expected that.
You didn't ask about the route.
Should I have?
Most people do. You know, shortcut versus scenic, main road versus back road.
He tapped the wheel.
I figured you knew the fastest way.
The driver made a small sound in his throat. Not agreement, not quite disagreement either. They passed a wooden sign on the side of the road, mostly eaten by ivy. Whatever was written on it had faded into nothing but black slashes.
Where exactly are we?
We call it Hangman Road.
Rebecca blinked. She wasn't sure she'd heard him correctly.
Excuse me?
This stretch, locals call it that.
That's a choice.
It's old. Name's older than me.
She wanted to ask more, but his tone discouraged it. Not unfriendly, just final. Instead, she shifted in her seat again and looked out the window. Trees and darkness. Occasionally, a piece of rusted fence or a plastic bag caught in a branch. No signs of traffic, no cars behind or ahead, just them. She checked her phone again. No signal. The driver slowed. Rebecca leaned forward.
Everything okay?
Cops signaled, don't worry.
She squinted into the darkness, but didn't see anyone. Then the red and blue flashed, brief, sudden, soundless at first. Then the siren kicked in like a warning from nowhere. The driver eased the cab onto the gravel shoulder. They stopped, and the woods seemed to lean a little closer. The trees pressed close on either side now. No shoulder, no lights. Just woods, the road, and their headlights carving out a narrow tunnel through it all. The cruiser's headlights were angled straight at them, flooding the cab's rear view and side mirrors with blinding white. Rebecca shielded her eyes as the door opened and the officer stepped out.
Didn't think they patrolled this road anymore. Not this stretch, not this late.
He moved slowly, not lazily, but with a kind of calm that didn't belong on a dark road at night. He rolled down the window as the silhouette approached. Slow steps, methodical, and straight down the middle of the lane. Rebecca felt her pulse in her throat. The officer wore a wide-brimmed hat, not like the ones she was used to seeing. This one had a stiff edge and sat too low over his brow. His uniform was old-fashioned, the fabric thick, and the buttons catching the headlights like small coins. His badge looked dulled, not with wear, but with time.
Good evening. Didn't expect to see anyone out this way. You know where you are?
Hangman's Road.
You chose it?
Best route to Willow-Wisp at this hour.
A silence settled. Rebecca could just barely make out the cop's lower face now, the edge of his jaw and cheek, waxy under the light, too smooth. No radio, no name tag. She couldn't see the cruiser behind him at all.
Most folks don't come this way no more. Some who do don't come back. You local?
No, sir. Fares from out of town.
He gave the faintest nod, then tilted his head slightly, looking past the driver and toward Rebecca. She sat straighter.
You all right, ma'am?
Yeah, just tired.
He didn't blink, didn't move.
Can I take a look in the back?
We've got nothing illegal.
That wasn't the question.
A long pause followed. Rebecca could hear the insects outside for the first time, the clicking, chirping rhythm of the woods.
Trunk's locked. I can open it if you got a reason.
The officer's lip twitched, not into a smile, but something more rigid, like he was holding something in.
You don't mind me checking, do you?
I didn't say I did. Just asking if there's a reason.
He leaned down a little closer to the window. Still, Rebecca couldn't see his eyes.
Miss, are you being taken somewhere against your will?
No.
You sure?
Yes. He's a taxi driver. We're coming from the airport.
The officer didn't react.
We're going to the hotel.
You don't sound sure.
I'm tired.
Or scared at him, or at least at one of us.
His tone wasn't accusing, more like he wanted it to be true, wanted something to go wrong.
We're just trying to get to the hotel, officer.
The man stood there unmoving. Rebecca could see the ends of his gloves now, the leather worn down to a dull gray, fingers stiff at his sides. She swallowed hard.
Do you need to see ID?
He tilted his head again.
Why would I need to see ID if you're just going to the hotel?
He rested his thumbs on his belt, right next to the handcuffs. And the pistol. Her mouth went dry. The conversation was spiraling. His questions didn't connect. He kept circling back, asking the same things in different words, like he wasn't really listening, just performing something memorized. Then, for a long moment, no one said anything. The officer stood. His gloved hand twitched once near his belt. The driver's fingers gripped the wheel. And then, far behind them, a distant roar. Another vehicle. Fast. The officer straightened. His head turned. Rebecca turned too. The sound came closer. The officer stepped back.
You stay put. I'll deal with this.
Then he walked back toward his car, slow, deliberate, and vanished again into the wash of light. The driver rolled the window back up and let out a breath. Rebecca sat frozen.
What just happened?
He wanted a reason.
What kind of reason? For what?
The driver kept his eyes on the rearview mirror. The glow from the cruiser flared, then shifted.
I don't think he knows.
The patrol car's headlights shifted slightly as the officer moved around, disappearing into its glare. Then came the churn of an engine. The patrol car revved loud and rough. It turned, preparing to give chase. The speeding vehicle roared through the main road, just a flicker of movement in Rebecca's peripheral vision. Taillights blinking erratically before vanishing around the bend. The officer's car followed. And then they were alone again. The driver didn't waste time. He shifted into gear and hit the gas, pulling them back onto the road. Rebecca twisted in her seat, trying to catch a last glimpse of the patrol car. But the trees swallowed the road behind them, and the dark closed in like a curtain. She let out a nervous laugh, just to break the silence.
He thinks he's gonna catch up to that guy?
They'd better slow down. That main road can be deceiving at night.
His voice was calm, too calm, like he'd already watched it play out in his head. Rebecca turned her eyes back to the road. No lights ahead, no signs, no guardrails. Just dark forest and a ribbon of asphalt stretching forward into nowhere. She sank into her seat and buckled her coat tighter, though it wasn't cold. No one spoke, and the woods around them remained still. The rest of the ride was uneventful. The road straightened eventually, and patches of sodium streetlight flickered through the trees as the outskirts of the city reappeared like a slow sunrise. Rebecca sat still the whole way, hands in her lap, eyes fixed on the blur of pavement beyond the windshield. She wanted to say something, maybe ask the driver if that had ever happened before, but nothing seemed appropriate. Everything that needed to be said already hung in the air, unspoken and heavy. When the hotel finally appeared, squatting in a dim corner of a service road with a tired green neon sign flickering above the glass doors, she almost didn't recognize it as real. The cab rolled to a stop in front of the lobby, the brakes hissing gently. He didn't say anything at first, just turned his head slightly in her direction.
That'll be 30.
He said as if they'd just finished a trip from the train station. She handed him the bills without a word. He didn't count it. Then the car rolled away without another look back, disappearing down the same dark road they'd come from, taillights winking like dying stars. Inside, the lobby was quiet, empty but warm. The front desk clerk gave her a half-smile, sliding over her keycard. She made it upstairs, stripped off her coat, and fell into the stiff mattress without even taking off her shoes. Sleep came instantly, heavy and dreamless. The next morning, the world had recalibrated. She sat on the edge of the bed with a cup of coffee in her hands, lukewarm and cheap, the room still draped in a gray, early morning haze. The events of the night before lingered in her chest, not sharp like fear, but slow and sour like a bruise. She turned on her phone, more out of habit than interest, and opened a search tab. Hangman's Road. She didn't even finish typing before the top result loaded, fresh and time-stamped just hours ago. She tapped the headline. Fatal car crash brings local urban legend back to the spotlight. Last night, a frontal collision involving a sedan and a truck resulted in the death of 4 miners at the infamous Hangman's Road, connecting the cities of Marstonville and Willow-Wisp. According to Lawrence Corman, the truck driver, the car was way above the speed limit and swerved between the lanes like a sewing needle, approaching too fast to dodge. Lawrence was rescued from the scene with a broken leg. He expressed his condolences to the victims' families and said that the investigations will prove that there was nothing he could do to prevent this awful loss of lives. This accident adds to the cluster of fatalities that made Hangman's Road infamous. Hangman's Road used to be the spot where Quentin Walsh, the Marstonville hangman, used to abduct and display his victims. The serial killer's reign of terror ended 60 years ago, when he was cornered and arrested in a shootout that took the life of police officer Samuel Page. Since then, the stretch of road has become infamous for its recurring accidents, which many police authorities blame on drunk teenagers speeding on dares and trying to put urban legends to the test. Thank you for venturing into Obscura Scrolls. Don't forget to like and subscribe so YouTube knows you're one of us. May we meet again in similar nights. Stay vigilant. Stay safe.